Hey guys, so today I plan on doing a 40 litre brew. I'm going to do a half-hour boil but a full 1 hour mash. The reason for this is I'm going to use cubes, so there'll be no bittering additions at all except for what's in the cube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cold steep some dark grains. This is going to be 5 kilos of extra pale Marisota and 2 kilos of carapils. The dark grains will go into one, cold steeped, go into one cube after I've boiled it. So that'll change the color, and I'll use different hops in the cube. So come along, and I'm just heating up the strike water now, and I'll show you some of the footage. One crushed Camden tablet because I'm using tap water. I just put that in to kill all the chlorine and chloramines in the water, and I do that while I'm heating up my strike water. For clarity, the addition that goes into the cube is effectively, because I'm transferring it straight after the boil, I switch off the boil and a couple of minutes later I transfer into the cubes. That counts as a 20-minute hop drop comparatively. So anything after that would be a dry hop. But I've recently made a pale which just had 80 grams of citra for a 30 litre batch, 25 litre batch, and the bitterness was about right, so I'm happy with that. I'm happy with just the single addition if I want, and then I'll taste the wort at the end of fermentation to decide whether I want to do a dry hop. Okay, just to give you an idea of the mash consistency, I've done 31 litres strike water. And then what I'll do is I will sparge based on how much is left after the mash, but it's a decent thickness mash. That I'll keep stirring this probably for another 5 minutes, just to make sure I get a really nice. I've doughed in really well, and then I will start the timer. Okay, I'm all doughed in now. I'm going to start the recirculation. One tip with these all-in-one systems: start your recirculation really slow. Let the momentum build up through the grain bed before you speed up, and as you basically check every sort of 5 minutes and just tweak it up a little bit, as long as it's not raising up the overflow pipe. That way you don't end up with a stuck mash. Okay, so we're just in the kitchen now, and the plan here is to take some chocolate malt, about 80 grams. I don't want it to be a stout or anything like that. I just want to have a different color, just to explain. You could use caramel malt, you could make an IPA instead of a pale ale. You can also add sugar if you wanted to. So I'm adding a kilo of sugar to the oil. But if I wanted to have different gravities, I could add sugar. And basically, when I boil this up after the steep, just add some sugar to that, and then we'll have different ABVs as well. Okay, that's the 100 grams of chocolate malt mixed in, and I'll just leave that until perhaps just before the end of the boil. On the other side, I will then sieve out the grain and give it a quick boil, just 10 minutes, and then chuck it in one of the cubes. Last thing about this is you can actually put the grain into like a muslin bag or something like that, which is just as handy. It's easier to then remove the grain, and you can even have a little sparge. So you then put the muslin bag into a sieve, bit of hot water, over the top just to drain out the last of the bits, but I'm going to do it this way. Okay, my pH is at 6, so I'm going to chuck in just a dab, an unmeasured dab, but I'm going for about 3 or 4 mils of lactic acid. This is 80% lactic acid, so it's not as strong as the one that goes in Beersmith, which I think is 88%, but my pH always ends up a little bit high, but I don't like to put too much of this in purely because it can affect the flavor of your beer. Okay, so just done the measurement for the pH, and probably between 5 and 5.4, probably 5.4, so happy with that. Okay, I'm approaching the stage where I'm going to bring the temperature up to 75 degrees for mash out. I'm going to take a quick gravity reading, but first I'm going to use some distilled water . It's quite a bit out at the moment, so basically you just take the cap off and you screw this thing here. So now that's on 0. I know I can wipe this down and it's going to give me an accurate reading. Just a little tip. Okay, so that is sitting at 1061, and that's that's before I sparge, obviously. So I'm aiming for about between 1040 and 1045. Okay, so we've got to the 75 degrees mash out temperature. I left it there for about 10 minutes, recirculating. Pulled out the malt pipe, and I've put 10 litres of tap water in just at normal temperature, so I can show you. That's just on its way down there. It's nearly, you can see the top plate there, so it's not too far off, and I've left that at 75, so I'm just going to keep it there. I'm not going to rush this bit. Once I get it to the boil, I will just boil it. I'll chuck a Protofloc tablet in straight away, and then I'll boil it for like 10-15 minutes just to get the boil. I don't want to lose too much wort to the boil. So that's it. I had an issue here. I wasn't concentrating and I forgot to put the Protofloc tablet in the sparge water. So what I did is really quickly, while it was still full, I crushed up a Camden tablet, just sprinkled it in and mixed it. That's why when I showed you it was swirling like that, because I just mixed the stuff that was in the top. So hopefully I've caught that, because there's quite a strong smell of chlorine in the water at the moment. It might be the water levels are getting low, or it's a different source, but just something to bear in mind. Okay, so I've got to about 35 litres there, so I'm going to top it up to about 42 litres. Should leave me 43. Hopefully I'll get 20 in each, with the losses to true, in each cube. Then the other cube will get, it's about a litre of the steeped water that I will have boiled. So yeah, it's ramping up for the boil now. So I'm not sure about this cube. I keep smelling that chlorine smell when I use it to refill the water, to top up the kettle in that. So I've put a Camden tablet in, and I'm just going to keep shaking it until I need it. I'm just going to occasionally put it this way, or occasionally put it that way. Just really get that Camden to neutralize any chlorines that are in there. It's something that's been a problem for me in past brews, where it just there's a flavor that comes through from like the chlorine. It bonds somehow, the elements bond differently. So chuck a Camden tablet in, it bonds with the chlorine and stops it from providing that off flavor. So I don't want to then use that as a cube if it's got like absorbed or something, some kind of chlorine or chloramine. So I'm just going to keep doing that, and hopefully it'll neutralize that. I can just chuck that water out afterwards. And here we are. That's the level we're at, which is, there's 45, so probably 42 and a half. That's fine with me. So I'll take a gravity reading. I'll come back to you with the gravity reading, and I just have to pop out and fetch my son quickly. So I've set that to 90, which will get it up to temperature, but it won't be a boil. And then when I get home, I'll just slap it to 100. Cool. I am recirculating the pump, but if you look here, the recirculation arm is actually under the level of the water, so there's no splashing, or it doesn't seem to be giving it, because it's pointing down, it doesn't seem to be giving it any kind of a whirlpool action or anything. But I'll just leave it running for a few minutes, and I like it up high temperatures like 90, because that gets I know everything there is sanitary for when I transfer it as well. Hey guys, okay, so I've taken a pre-boil gravity. Bear in mind this is before I add the kilogram of sugar. It's 1036. I'm going to see if I can, hopefully you can see that, 1036. So I think I'm probably good. A kilo of sugar might push me over the 1043 mark, but it doesn't really. The ABV isn't what I'm concerned about here today. It's the two different flavors and two different colors. Okay, so I turned the temperature down just before bringing it up to the boil. I put the 1 kilo of sugar in, gave it a good stir. You can probably see it just about coming to the boil there, but still spinning around from trying to mix the sugar, and I didn't want it to like get stuck on the bottom or anything like that. So this should hit the boil any minute now, and then I'll chuck in the Protofloc tablet, give it 10 minutes, turn it off and transfer it. Okay, I'm about to turn off the boil. Let's see if I can do this for you again. The gravity looks to me to be 1046, so slightly above what I was aiming for, but that's okay. The good thing is I can do all my bittering additions now, so I can just adjust the bittering hops for the potential ABV of the beer. So I'm going to switch off now, and I'm going to clean out these things and transfer. Just done flame out, and I'm just doing a little whirlpool like that. I put the lid back on. I'm happy with that now. So I'm going to, once I've done the whirlpool, which is probably, I'll leave it for about 5 minutes, just once it settles down, then I'll transfer. Okay, so I've just finished the transfer of the stuff. I'll show you. So what I've got here is about 21 litres on this side and just under 19 litres on that side. So when I put the dark malt in there, they should be about the same level each. What I will do is I'll roll them around a little bit once I put the hops in. It's literally just done the transfer. I'm going to chuck the hops in now, and then I'll add the dark grains. Okay, so I've got Columbus and Chinook. I think the Columbus is going in the dark one, and the Chinook is going in the pale. So I'll do that, then I'll put the dark malt in. So now I've put in the hops and I've put in the dark grain steep, and you can see the difference in color now. That's going to be probably like a dark ruby, and this one is going to be an extra pale. It's all just extra pale malt. So on top of that, obviously we'll have the different hops, and we'll have but we're going to use the same yeast. So I'm going to use the same yeast on this, but you could use like an SO5 on the pail to punch the hops, and maybe an SO4 on the dark one, just to give you more malt forward flavor. So anyway, I'll put this one up, and then I'll come back once it's all fermented and in glasses. Cheers.